No, I'm serious. You can draw anything. Anyone can draw anything. I'm not saying some things won't be difficult, but I'm saying that everything is possible. Learning art can be intimidating because of the sheer amount of theoretical concepts, but at the root of everything, all artists learn via something called observation, and I'm here to teach you how to do that. Hi, I'm Jessie, and welcome to Slowpaint, where I teach you concepts via slowing down parts of my actual drawing process so you can see the theory in action. So grab a drink, pick up your pen, and draw along with me. Observation is not just, I look at this thing and I copy it. Observation is taking your subject matter and analyzing it to truly understand what makes this object work and exist in three-dimensional space using visual context clues. Think of it like artistic inference. This allows you, in the future, to draw said object from different angles and in different contexts because you understand its structure, instead of just copying it one for one. Take, for instance, this teacup. By observing, we can break down its basic forms. This teacup is cylindrical or semi-spherical in nature based on its opening at the top, but it tapers down to a small, flat cylinder at the bottom, allowing it to stand up on its own. Judging by the opening at the top and the shape at the bottom, we can infer that the entire form can look something like this. We can tell that the handle is a little more cylindrical in nature based on the way that the shadows and highlights hit it. Compare the highlights and shadows on a flat handle, and compare the highlights and shadows on a pipe for a non-bent cylindrical form. The lip of the teacup is also scalloped. We can assume each scallop is the same size, but you can also observe that visually they don't appear that way. Observation can also teach us new concepts, such as this one, which is a principle of foreshortening. All foreshortened things will be perceived compressed. Because this is a curved object that we're looking at head-on, the edges of the cup become foreshortened as they compress onto themselves. Like you can see in this diagram, they'll appear smaller because of that. So we can keep this in mind for the future if we're to draw this cup again. And now that we've observed the cup and broken it down into basic structural forms and concepts, we've now opened the door to drawing it in other contexts as well. Try to break down and observe the structure of the plate on your own. But now, let's go on to a real illustration, and let me show you how I will apply the concept of observation into my actual process. So I went to a garden recently, and I was really inspired by a lot of the different things that surrounded me, right? So I took a bunch of pictures. I took a bunch of pictures of things that I wanted to take inspiration from, some things that I wanted to observe as I drew. Something that's kind of tough to draw that will require observation is staircases, right? Staircases can be really tough for some people. So what I can observe from the image that I took, especially from this angle that I have decided to take inspiration from, is that as we get closer to me, as we get closer to the spot that I am standing from, the distance between each stair, they appear larger and larger as they come closer to me. And as we get farther up the staircase, they start to get smaller and smaller in length from one another. And from previous knowledge that I understand, I know that that is just kind of how stairs work because of perspective. But also from remembering, this is why it's also really good to take your own reference photos. From remembering how these stairs looked, no two of them were the same size. They were all the same sort of height from one another, which we can observe from here. They're all very similar in height, but in terms of actual length, they were not all the same length. They were not all the same shape. We can also tell by the edge of the stairs here that they are not completely all the same exact shape anyway. So I can rough this up a little bit, translating that to over here. So we're going to start with the stairs because the stairs is a nice sort of anchor point to begin with when we are working with something like this. As we are cleaning up the sketch and we are giving ourselves a nicer sort of base to work with. And the thing with referencing and observing is that you are also using your references to understand what it is that you are drawing. You don't necessarily have to copy the thing that you are referencing exactly. In fact, I don't recommend that you copy them exactly. It's better for creativity for you to also take creative liberties on what it is that you are looking at. Right, so this is a good start with the stairs. We've already kind of got something going down. Again, it's not a perfect thing. It doesn't need to be. This is just the sketch. You shouldn't think about it being absolutely perfect. Another thing that I observe when looking at these stairs, something that I really enjoy, is when the pathway is not perfectly clear. And I really love the way that these rocks kind of overtake this side of the stairs. So I'm going to do that as well and help the composition a little bit by adding those rocks back in. So let's do that too. And again, we're kind of observing how the rocks overtake specifically this side. They sort of line the edge here. There's not quite as many. Another thing that I observe too is just, they're not just rocks. There is moss and there's dirt and there are small little green plants that go in between each of those rocks that give it that sense of life, right? So I would like to add those back in as well. And just like before, I am choosing to not copy them exactly, because at this point I am referencing. I am not trying to get this object down exactly. I am taking a photo that I have taken and using it as sort of an inspiration point and visual reference for an energy and a concept that can breathe life into something new. When you're referencing an object and you want more of that, like, I have no clue how to draw this, I really need to learn how, that's when you'll do stuff closer to the teacup idea, where then you will actively be like, okay, so this is where this goes, and that's how this section will interact with this section, stuff like that. That is where you will take more of a physical, how do I draw this approach, where you might not be taking creative liberties based on composition. You might not be doing that. You will instead be directly understanding how the anatomy of an object works. In this case, I am using these images, this specific image, to give me inspiration for just the overall sort of vibe of the illustration that I want, not necessarily copying it one for one, just sort of giving me an idea of where I want things to go and what kind of composition I want. But let's move on to this big tree that I also saw. It was like a weeping willow or a willow tree of some kind, right? And I loved its forms. I loved its shape. It had this really nice hollowed out section in the center here. And like, I have another photo. You can kind of see it here. But I took another like really close up of it where there's like almost like a burrow that was happening underneath there, which I really enjoyed. But the thing that was most inspirational to me was just the overall like hulking shape of this tree. You can kind of see people off to the side that like give you like an idea of how big this tree was, and it was very, very inspiring. So in this case, this is one where I am observing the object directly. I am now looking at the form of this tree. I am directly being like, oh, I really want to observe and use this tree directly, right? Changing up this composition and putting this tree right here. So let's do that. Now I am directly looking at this tree, and the thing that I am noticing immediately is this sort of hulking bulbous form at the bottom, right? By comparison to like, because I love drawing trees, but by comparison to the normal tree that I draw, this one doesn't really have like roots and big like vines and stuff coming out of the bottom. This one has more like the wood is starting to like bubble up at the bottom. So let's take those forms and let's work with that. And it's like I understand how a tree looks. I've seen many trees in my lifetime, so I understand that this entire tree section here is cylindrical, and it is will be cylindrical all the way up. It won't be perfect cylinders. A way that I use to teach trees is like, you can almost think of them as like stacks of pool noodles, but it is pretty close to being very, very cylindrical. So I'm sort of just looking at the shapes and the forms that I'm seeing. I get closer to the bottom of this tree, so I want to keep that overall very bulbous sort of look. And the tree itself sort of straightens out as we get higher up. And here's an example of me taking creative liberties instead of copying it exactly. It's like, I understand that there is more space between the bulbous section at the bottom until it starts to go off into branches, but for the sake of composition, I am making that distance a lot shorter. So I really want to put this cat in here. Right, so we've got this sort of tree going on here. Another thing that I will observe, I'll go to this smaller image here, or not smaller, but it's like at a wider angle. I noticed that all of the branches that have leaves on them, these big hulking ones, don't really have any leaves. They all have super tiny branches coming off of the tree that sort of sag down, right? It's like, that's what like willow trees are. It's like the leaves sort of fall downwards and then they almost look like tears falling. So we're gonna go with that. We're gonna have a couple of them. The top of the tree is sort of hidden from us, but I want to include a few of them in there at the very least to give us like some of that falling effect. We're not gonna make it too dense because there's other bits that I want to show off behind it. As I was working, as you watch me work on the tree as well, these little like dashes and lines are me sort of imitating the patterning here very, very simply, right? It's like it almost has like this crack-like nature to it. The bark of the tree is like very like, you get these long sort of like lines here with little interruptions in the center, right? This is the simplification, the simplified version of what it is that we're looking at right here. Right? But from there, I have added in the big tree that I really wanted, so let's go back to this guy. I'm going to start taking, again, more inspiration for how to fill in the rest of the space here. So there's a lot of smaller kind of bush-like trees that I can mimic, and they have very thin branches, so we're going to add those guys back in here. And they're not too obvious, especially after this huge tree is taking up a lot of the space. So we're gonna make them nice and small and not as obvious or overwhelming. Same with a little bit of the leaves in the back here. I'm gonna thicken up some of the sketch lines to kind of tell me what is the most important stuff going on here, to which it's like we want kind of the willow leaves. I'm so sorry if this is not a willow tree. I ain't a botanist. I see long hanging leaves and I'm like, willow trees. So if it's not, I'm sorry to you botany people. And then from there, I'm gonna add another layer just for the characters in there. Now, thankfully, I have my lovely father in this scene here, so you can kind of see what size everything is by comparison. So there's a little bit of a size comparison going on with everything. I don't usually work with this many layers, but I'm attempting to slow down for you guys. Usually I work with like just one. And I call it a day. Now it's like I can see where my father is on this step. I'm gonna draw in a cricket here on the kind of middle step. And that is sort of a good base to start. It's here where I shut off my mic in the moment because I wanted to lock in and I wanted to draw this. So you get the audio in post now. I'm the kind of person who loves to create tons of intricate texture-filled lines and use super comic-y techniques like black work and etching. I like to make my lines feel as non-digital as possible because I feel like it adds a level of natural movement to them. And you can see as I line the bark of this tree, I'm really using those techniques to their full potential to etch in that texture. I'm being careful not to overdo it, but I'm observing how the texture weaves in and out of itself and how the bulbous parts have a more grouped together feeling for its bark. Later, you'll see me switch up the shapes that I use to imply the bark on the main trunk of the tree, because I observe that bark visually looks a little longer and more stretched, and sometimes it has like an almost like diamond shard or like a Zelda, like a Zelda rupee shape to it, you know? But just by how long I'm taking to do this tree, you can tell that I really like drawing trees. I hope you can't tell that I actually suck ass at drawing rocks. I had a lot of fun translating the texture of the sides of the sewn steps. I think I did a good job with that, but I think you can see me like really contemplating the shapes and forms of each rock. I've sped it up a lot, but there are several points where I have to stare at the rocks in my reference and break them down a lot slower as I work. That's the thing with observation. You probably already do it, but it encourages you to slow down and really take in what it is that you're looking at. Eventually, these breakdowns become automatic and you can reference things extremely well because you're trained to do it. But it takes you taking a step back, actively telling yourself what you see and what information that gives you, and then putting that information to paper. Think of it as like fun visual research in a way. The best part about it too is that that information sticks with you. You keep these observations and conclusions in your head the more that you work with them. And by getting more information, you build on your visual library. And a visual library is the subset of information that artists gain when they no longer need to use reference after drawing something so many times. Think of how some artists can draw their favorite characters or creatures or objects in seconds without needing to look at anything. And that took building their visual library. It wasn't an instant thing, it was something that took practice. As you watch me draw Cricket, I don't really need any kind of reference for them anymore because of the sheer amount of times I've already drawn them. You won't get there instantly, but you will with enough practice. It's, like I said in the beginning, it will be difficult, but you can draw anything with time. The one thing I do need with Cricket is their local values, so I do need a reference for that, though. As I bring in the flats, you'll notice that I'm not color picking. I'm working directly off of the eye. The big reason for this is A, it's better practice to visually try and match hues and values, and B, I don't want them exact anyway. A reason they're called references is because we're referencing the original, we're not copying it. I personally want brighter, fuller hues than the original photo, so that's what I'm choosing to work with. However, I still want that overall atmosphere of a shaded area beneath a tree with bright afternoon light peeking through the leaves. So I'm still keeping that in mind while I add local values and hues to things. I'll slow this section down for you here. This is called dappled lighting. This is, I think, the third ever time I've drawn dappled lighting. It's super pretty, but I'm still in that phase of needing to observe the reference closely, so I know what I'm dealing with. But this is also a good example of following reference while mixing previous knowledge to create a new product. The lighting I've chosen for the tree in particular is similar, but not exact to the tree in the photo. I want the light to be a little lower and a little closer to us, like it's early to mid-afternoon maybe. So it's still bright in the sky, but there are longer shadows and they are angled. So while I'm following the forms of the dappled lighting, I'm brightening up the base of the trunk of the tree a little. I'm also taking into account that the tree is a little leaned and the trunk is curved, so I curve a few of the extra little light spots that streak across the trunk to give it that three-dimensional look. You'll see the difference in how I handle the tree versus the stones, cricket, and the other foliage. So this is me taking that prior understanding of three-dimensional forms and blending it with the observations I'm making with the references themselves. I personally believe the longest and most tedious yet fun part of the process is all the finishing touches. Stuff to help silhouettes pop and stuff to help them accentuate forms. A glow here, brighter edge there, a blur over it all, stuff like that. The stuff that isn't necessarily based in necessity, think of them as more like style points than anything. I have to be careful not to go too overboard or else it'll feel over-rendered, but also not to go too subtle or else it'll feel unfinished. And that's something I can't really teach you because it relates to what style you want for yourself. Frankly, as I look at this one now, I realize I forgot I forgot bounce lighting, but that's okay. I finished this days ago. I'm not gonna finish it now. Plus, I'm not talking about lighting in this. I'm talking about observation. But if you want me to talk about lighting, or if you have other suggestions for future slow paints, let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, subscribe. I appreciate you all, and keep on holding the pencil.